Hi everybody. The final revision that I want you to think about for your personal narrative is something that we talked about briefly yesterday, and that is something called show, not tell. How can you show, not tell important events in your story? How can you show what is going on? So show, don't tell is kind of like an old saying, and it really means rather than just simply saying what someone is like or how you're feeling, you actually show the reader by maybe an action, a thought, a sense, or some feelings. So in the example we have on the screen here, instead of saying Mr. Smith was a fat, grouchy old man, that's just telling you what Mr. Smith is like. You could actually show what Mr. Smith is like by saying something like, Mr. Smith heaved his heavy frame out of the armchair. You'll notice here that I'm not saying that he's fat or that he's a big guy, but I'm showing it by describing how he moves, alright, how he acts. And while trying to reach for his cane, grumbled, Susan, get yourself over here now. So from this speech, we get some idea that he's a grouchy man as well. Let's look at another example. So say your personal narrative takes place in a school, okay? Maybe it's your first day. Now, if you were to try and tell the reader what this experience was like, you may say something like, I walked down the hall, I was nervous, I went into my classroom. All right? We get an idea that you're anxious, that you're nervous, but we don't really get an idea about what this looks like, okay? What the hallway looks like, how you feel particularly. So if we instead show that to the reader, we might say something like, as I entered the building on the first day, it was like walking into a sea of students, right? We can really see what that's like. Stuffed backpacks and lunch boxes pushed into my body from all directions. My mouth felt dry as I got closer to my classroom. The newly waxed floors smelled like fresh pine and it bothered my throat. Voices were swarming around my head like bees as I nervously approached my classroom door. So we've used some descriptive language here, some similes, some adjectives to really give the reader a sense of what this experience is like. And that's really what you're doing with show, not tell. So how can you show the reader perhaps your emotions, how you feel? Right? So maybe if you were thrilled about something or you're really excited, okay, and rather than just saying I was excited, which doesn't really give me an idea about how excited you are, you could show it by saying I jumped up and down, squealed with excitement, right? This not only shows the reader how you feel, but it also gives a more visual sense to the experience. I was furious. Instead of saying that, you could show that you were furious by saying something like, I was so angry my face was red as an apple. All right? I can see what that looks like, and so on. I was nervous. What do we do when we're nervous? Well, we bite our nails, some of us. And you can also use show, not tell if you're trying to describe a setting. So rather than just saying it was really cold outside, right, you could say instead, my nose burned in the frigid air and I had to squint against the sun reflecting off the street. So that just doesn't just give us the idea that it's cold, that word frigid, but also that it's actually snow on the ground because the sun is reflecting off the street. Right? So we really get a good sense of what this looks like. So for the extra credit Padlet, I want you to imagine it's a hot summer day at Coney Island, right? We got the beach here, we got a lot of people in the sea, we've got the amusement arcade behind, we got the Thunderbolt, the Cyclone, all right? And imagine that you were a kid lost on that beach. How could you show, don't tell that experience? Maybe by describing the setting, right? Of all these people, the hot day, the bright sun, or maybe how you're feeling about being lost. Try and be as creative as possible. So for example, my example is the air smelled of sun cream and hot dogs as I looked around me into a brightly colored maze of bodies and sun umbrellas. Right? That doesn't just give the sense that it's a hot day and what it's like to be in Coney Island on a hot summer day, but also the sense of being lost, right? We're in this maze of bodies and sun umbrellas. Try and be as creative as you can to show me, to show the reader what this experience would feel like if you were this person that was lost. And then lastly, think about in your own particular personal narrative when you're coming to revise it, how could you show the reader a moment in your story by revealing your emotions, by showing the setting or some characterization, right? When we're thinking about the most important points of our personal narrative, it's probably going to be your climax, right? So think about your climax, think about how you can really show the reader how that feels to you, what that looks like.